guys. I've been thinking about a lot of things, as always, and today I want to talk about, I guess, what you'd call incorrect narrative and what it's like living with that. I spend a lot of time hearing about perceptions or statements that are said about me or what I will do or what I have done. And a lot of those are purposefully incorrect. Sometimes they're not purposeful or they've come down second or third hand until it's a little bit like the telephone game where the whispers go along and it gets changed. I was really sad for the children this weekend because they heard about their uncle's wedding and the message that got passed on to them it was that they're not invited. And knowing their uncle, he's such a beautiful man and he would have wanted them to be there. And I would have wanted them to be there. It was a really important event. I know 2 of the children got invited and 2 didn't, is what I got told. I only found out the evening just before the wedding, and so there was no place for me to be able to change it, and I don't think I could have anyhow. It's not my position, it's not my decision to make anymore. Looks like the puppy's coming in. Hey, Chloe. Hello. Okay, now 2 puppies are coming in. You'll have to wait for the noise. Hello. Go and lay down. And it's a monumental time for the family, and it's the last marriage of that generation, of our generation. So we went to as many as we can, and so the next generation are already being married, and we went to that last year, and it's just so sad to see. I would have loved for them to be able to go and be part of that family. There's a level of sadness for me as I don't get to see a boy get married, and I know that he will make an amazing husband. He's such a genuinely lovely guy, and I had a great relationship with him, and I still consider him to be my family. I know that probably isn't both ways, but I watched my oldest heart get broken. She pretends that she doesn't care, but I heard her in the car asking my son, and she said, were we invited? He said, no, no. And I interrupted and I said, oh, that probably isn't the case. It probably was Daddy and the children or something like that. Or maybe that they were told that your mummy would never let you go, which is absolutely not the case and against everything that I've ever said or tried to push. Really open to having that flexibility and communication, but it's never been there. I just find out after events are happening and that sort of thing. It's sad. I would have wanted the kids to get to hang out with their cousins and their second cousins and see Auntie Sharon and see Nana and Granddad. And I know that I approached their Nana and Granddad, Nana, 8 years ago now, and said, look, if this situation ever happens, if there's a way that someone gets in between and says they're not allowed to see you, please know that you could always contact me and I will get them to you. I will drop them off. You don't have to see me. You don't have to talk to me if you no longer are talking to me or not allowed to talk to me. I will come in and have a cup of tea with you. I would let you meet them anywhere. Just message me, and I hope that they still remember that conversation. Like my oldest talks about her grandfather, and she says, "I wonder how he's going because I miss him." And I don't know what I'd talk about, and I'd tell her, and I've had this conversation within the last month. I said, Grandad would say, "Hey, how you going? What you been doing? Tell me about school." And you'd just have a cup of tea and talk, and it would be okay. But sadly isn't the case of what's happening at the moment. I have reached out once or twice in the last 8 years, very subtly, but well, not subtly, but very carefully. But I know that communication cannot happen, and the middle person doesn't want that to happen, and that's really, really sad. It's really sad. Not only has Ellie lost her dad, and he won't talk to her, and he says the awfulest things about her, but she's lost a whole side of her family, and she didn't have a big family to begin with. It's fixable and fixable, and it doesn't have to be this way, but it is this way. And then there's other children who have been taught negative things in other directions, and I just wish it wasn't the case. Abby was told directly that she couldn't go because I wouldn't let her, but I would have. Absolutely, I would have. And it might just be the case that it was too difficult to take the children. Maybe it was another one of that style of wedding that has happened in the past where children aren't invited. Maybe it was that someone didn't want to look after them for the entire weekend or for that night, or didn't want to interact, or didn't want to show that they had to ask a question. And I know asking questions for them shows a weakness of saying, would like you to do this for me or for the children. But it sucks. It does my head in. And when I'm trying to do anything that I can possible for the children, it really sucks. So the next mid-generation down, there's only one person left to be married, and I don't see them getting married for a long time, if ever. And then the next line of family within both sides of our family is the babies. I hope things are fixed by then. I guess our cousins, as in the ones that are from Sharon, and that there's still a chance that they'll get married. And I had hoped at one stage that there'd be on maybe the Wimble side a re-establishment of that family, but I don't think it's time yet. And if they reach out, then yay. We're still around, and our circles have passed in the overlapped in the past, and it's been awesome to actually reconnect and chat. And I hate how broken this world is, but these things happen. I do hate the amount of miscommunication that's constantly happening, though. It is really hard, especially with children with disability and a social disability, because they want to say, yeah, it's everything's good, everyone's happy, everyone's good people, and yet they don't have the social wisdom and the understanding to know that you can love someone and you can think they're amazing, and you don't have to believe everything that they believe or agree with everything that they say. And I watch, especially my son, going through this, where he wants to believe that everybody that he loves in his life are completely right, they're completely good, and everything is fine. And yet, his life doesn't show that to him, and he can't handle the discrepancy between these two worldviews, and it causes him so much pain. And it is okay to say, so and so is an amazing person to me, and they mean the world to me, and that they said something that may not be true, um, especially if something they've said is not okay in Bear's world. I hope one day that he's able to understand enough to know that this isn't something that he has to carry, it isn't a deficiency of him, and he didn't love people. It wasn't the fact that he didn't love them enough or any of that. And he didn't have to fix anything. It wasn't on him. None of this is meant to be fixed by our children. That children are not capable of making these decisions, because while they will make a decision, it will hinder their adulthood. It will make them second guess. It will mean that they are constantly wondering about that responsibility that they've taken, that they hold that burden. How does a child do that? How does a child learn and know boundaries and feel safe and feel loved and have unconditional safety and love? So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about just the whole aspect of what they now call CPTSI, so instead of CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress injury. And they know it's an injury now rather than a disorder, because it's a damage, a hurt to the brain that can be undone. And it basically puts your brain into the fight or flight, etc. Dynamic. And so it's constantly pumping through these chemicals that cause you to be on edge and ready for action, and never allows you to relax and that sort of stuff. And then once you've been through enough traumatic experiences or big enough traumatic experiences, your body will automatically sit in this place because it's waiting for that situation to be always happening. And now they've got a way of undoing that. And so it basically restarts how your brain releases these chemicals, and it stops you being in that fight or flight can't think of the right word, the fight or flight situation, way of being. And it's amazing how much, once you know about these sort of things, that you can really learn to heal and forgive yourself. For years, I couldn't understand why I just was a ball of nerves, a ball of anxiety and sadness, and I'd be so reactive, and my emotions would be 10 times the size that they should be. And it was instant. There was no kind of progress of, oh, other people can kind of handle that sort of stuff. And it's not that I couldn't handle it. I was going through a huge amount of stuff that no one else should have to put up with. And I hear all the time that the stuff that I've gone through in the last 10 years, as well as the 10 years prior to that, was not something that people should be put through. And I got through. And being able to understand why I felt the way I did now, and hoping to get out of that feeling of being scared and all of that, it gives you hope. It gives you hope. I don't know. I am not going to go for the treatments that they suggest. That's not on the books at the moment. But I can see how my life in the last 10 years has played out from that context. And it's really useful. It's nice to be able to wake up each day now and not have your heart racing, not having the anxiety. I can feel the healings that are starting to happen. But there is a grief for the last 20 years, like a lot of grief and a lot of loss. I was told that I was a really horrible person for so long when it wasn't the case. And when you go back and actually look at the situation and what was happening, what I was told didn't line up. And I was made to be the monster when it was just me responding to someone. It's nice to know that I won't always feel like everything's my fault. And I spent a long time being told that it was my fault. I still get told all the time a lot of things from the children that they've heard and repeat that are very triggering and unkind, and they barely know that it's unkind. Like I heard the other day along the message line that I have no reason to be scared or fearful or nervous or reserved or have boundaries with certain people in my life because they are a good person. And yet I can look back now and say, I remember the physical issue and pain that I was in, or the situations that I was put in. I remember what was said to me. I remember what other people were told to change the situation. And I'd say, I remember the lies that I was told about other people, just that everything was manipulated. And it all makes sense now. It all makes sense. And it really didn't fall into place for many years. It took going back and speaking to people from our past, speaking to people who were in situations who said, no, that is not what the situation was. And this is what actually happened. And this is what we were told. And this is what you were told. And it was shocking. Every single time it was shocking. And it feels stupid that I believed so much. And that I believed all the stories that I was told about other people. It makes me sad for what's ahead for my children. It makes me sad what's happening now with Mississippi. I look at all the memories that we have of the last decade, and then I look at the drastic change that has happened since November, and the things that they now say, which they weren't saying even in November until the second that the separation happened. It's like chalk and cheese. It's absolutely astounding how much things have been altered, and I can see it from other people's viewpoints where they say, well, maybe I didn't know the truth. I guess that brings me to the point where I don't know what to do about that situation. I really am still lost, because I need to act in wisdom and in kindness and in love, and yet provide boundaries and be a good parent, and also protect all the other children. I know that if I engage, that it's taken out on the children. Over and over and over, I've seen that. If I address the falsehoods that have been said, that Maura said, if I push forward with the legalities, I might make the situation worse. If I do nothing, they might think that they're not loved. If I just show my love, I'm told I'm manipulative. It is insane what is happening. And I guess if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have a child that who's meant to be in my custody, who did not take her medication for some which was also manipulated by somebody else, and then within that time frame was taught some things that weren't true and allowed to believe certain things. And then she got taken away, and I didn't send the police after her, but I should have. I don't know what I should have done. I will never know what was the right thing to do. Because on the outside, if people don't know the full story, they think that she's okay. And if I say she's not, then that looks offensive. It's just so screwed up. A lot of bad things happened, and they don't look like bad things to her at the moment. And until 10 years down the track. A lot of professionals tried to step in and say this isn't okay, but we live in a country that respects the rights of parents and assumes that parents are going to do the right thing by their children. What happens when the children don't know what they need? What happens when they're developmentally younger than they're meant to be? And yet they don't know that. What happens when they're taught lies and yet they're diagnosed with psychosis, so they don't know that? In the end, I know God has this in control too. It's so sad to see that a family has been ripped apart. That these children who had been taught for their entire lives that their safety blanket, their foundation was each other, because they couldn't trust that they would have one foundational family in their parents, and they had to be leaving their parents every second week to go to another house. But that what they would always have, no matter what, and even as they aged, was each other. And yet then they're told that their siblings are not to be trusted, that they are not loved. Who tells that to a child? Thank God 2 of them knew better and went, no, we are loved, we are wanted. One didn't, and believed it hook, line and sinker. In all things, God be praised, I suppose. I'm going to head off now. God bless and love those around you. Ta-ra.